All right, guys, are you ready? All right, I think we are on the air here. Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015, 5 p.m. local time here in Bali. Time for the filter. This is the filter number 67. We've done this 66 times already, and it's still interesting a little bit, especially this week. The name of today's episode is Bitcoin Industry Prepares Lunar Lander. I chose that title a week ago, not really knowing how true it was going to be. Bitcoin has gone crazy. Like within the last 24 hours, we've seen the Bitcoin price go up tremendously. So why? I don't know. We're going to talk about it. Maybe we can figure it out together. We shall see. We're going to talk about that. We've got a little bit of local news to talk about. We've got quite a Bitcoin scene happening here in Bali that we're going to toot our own horn about. We've also got our trip around the world, only stopping in two places this time, Australia and China. Australia and China are on the whistle stop tour. And our word of the day is FOMO. It's an acronym for something else, FOMO. We will know what FOMO means, and we'll be able to use it in a sentence by the end of this hour. How exciting is that? And then at the end, I'm going to try to facilitate a discussion about the minimum wage and a company that decided to make their own minimum wage and what happened to them. And hopefully you guys can chime in when we get to that part. So let's kick things off. I'm going to share my screen so the nice folks at home can see what we're seeing. And there we go. The filter number 67, Bitcoin Industry Prepares Lunar Lander. I don't know if you guys know or not, but hold on a second here. Bitcoin has already been on the moon. We've got photo evidence here that happened. I don't know exactly when that happened, which Apollo mission that was. But as you can obviously see, there's a Bitcoin flag on the moon's surface. So we've already accomplished that. I think that Bitcoin is heading more towards Mars, maybe the Jupiter or the maybe another solar system altogether. We are going to determine exactly where it's going when Rick Shreves talks about the numbers in a little bit. All right, we are coming to you live from Hubud, the nicest, coziest, coolest co-working space in all of Ubud. We are sitting here in the cool conference room, which is a nice place to be, and Hubud is nice enough to provide these facilities for us every week, which is very kind of them, I think. And also, I mention this because we do this every Tuesday at 5. If you find yourself in Bali, I hope you'll join us in person so we can abuse you verbally based on your Bitcoin opinions. It's a lot of fun. So if you find yourself in Bali, come join us. In other local news related to Hubud, we've got the startup weekend happening November 20th. I keep plugging this because last year it was a huge event. There were lots and lots of people here and 0 Bitcoin projects. So I plan on doing my best to try and get a Bitcoin project to the finish line during startup weekend. Basically in 54 hours, we'll go from idea to working prototype, essentially. And there are still tickets available. So get on board for startup weekend. Incidentally, I'll put links to all these things in the show notes so you can find it after the fact if you need to. All right, what are we doing here, guys? Let me clear this away. We are working on building a Bitcoin economy here in Ubud. And we collaborate here in this Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group. If you have a story idea, you can post it here. Oh, there's the story from Teddy. Let me just open that up. We can go back to it later. Anyway, like Teddy has just done, he has just posted an article on block sizes, and I think we're going to have an impromptu discussion. I haven't read this yet, but that's how it goes. You paste stories here, and then we talk about it when we get together in person. So you too could have your topic aired amongst all of the huge brains we have in the room every week on Tuesday nights. All you have to do is post it in the Facebook group. So get involved. All right, we've also got, we've also got our Bitcoins in Bali hashtag on Twitter. You can see our main man, Johnny Freesh, has just departed for Melbourne, but he recently finished recording his F Your Bank single, which I'm sure we can air here eventually, as long as we make sure it's, we mark it as 18 plus. That, what's the age in Australia? He's in Melbourne. How old do you have to be? 18? Okay, yeah. 18 plus. All right. It's not a family show. It's not a family show.
That's a second. It doesn't match with my experience of Aussies at all.
By the way, stick around because we've got a little tribute to our man Johnny Freesh at the end of today's episode. So, yes, we're going to miss him in Melbourne. Okay, we've also got our YouTube channel. Yes, indeed, YouTube. Check it out. If you don't want to read, if you just want to watch, you can go here to the YouTube channel. Again, we'll post the links to that. Of course, we've already got a lot going on in Bali, Bitcoin-wise. You can take a fast boat to the Gillies. You can get a tattoo, scooter, hammock, hotel, mountain biking, you name it. It's happening here in Bali on Bitcoin. Back in July, I lived my entire life on Bitcoin. Didn't spend any rupiah, just Bitcoin. I nearly passed away, but I did live. And that's because I went to this Bit Island site to get all of my necessities taken care of with Bitcoin. So check that out. Speaking of what you can do with Bitcoin in Bali, you can buy Pulsa. Are you guys aware of this? You can buy Pulsa for your phone. We are going to go through a little demonstration right now to show you how easy it is to buy Pulsa with your phone. All I need is somebody's phone number. Do I have any volunteers?
Yeah.
Yeah? What's your phone number? You're going to have lots of ladies calling you like out of the blue here, Giorgio.
My number is 0821 440
Yep.
33853.
Oops.
Both sides,
33853.
prepaid phone credits.
So we're going to do this in real time just to show you how easy it is to, principal, did I push that button? Come on, Nelly. We're getting some action. Okay, there we go. So we are going to, it's picked up your phone number. We're going to give you 25 thou worth of Pulsa. And I'm going to send this to myself. Like so. Bayar sekarang, that means buy now. Don't let the Indonesian language scare you off here, guys. This is dead easy. And you can see it's just waiting for me to pay. I'm going to use my little CryptoKit wallet here. It picks up the address, and that's $2 worth of Bitcoin going to buy Pulsa. Now, for those of you who don't live in Bali or are not from Indonesia, Pulsa is prepaid phone cards. Basically, when your phone stops working, it means that you have no more money left to spend. And when that happens in the middle of the night, then you've got to, well, go find a toko, a local little Pulsa seller to send you some. And am I striking out here? All right, let's try this. I'm going to use my phone. I don't know what's going on with my CryptoKit wallet, but bear with me, guys.
I'm waiting.
There's a countdown here. I've still got 58 minutes. I don't know if people are going to sit around listening to us for 58 minutes, but let's see if we can't make this work. Okay, so I just used my phone to pay this with. Let's see if we can get an acknowledgement. Okay, I've now sent. Come on, guys.
I found your confirmations have been very, very slow.
Okay. Well, let's move along. We can come back to this tab later. I did send the Bitcoins in, so you've got your phone, right, Giorgio? Let us know if it also shows up.
Can I ask? I've got an Indonesian number,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure who the SIM card is from, or which company. Would this work with any SIM card provider?
Well, the reason you put your phone number in is it checks to see if it can sell you Pulsar on that network. So, yeah, you just got to try it.
Otherwise, I would need a SIM card from Pulsar.
From Simpati or Telkomsel.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Now, the other thing that you can do, and I know everybody's interested in how you get your hands on Bitcoin, and I'm just going to play you this nice little video that shows you exactly how you can buy Bitcoin right here at Hubud. Check this out.
This is the Hubud Bitcoin machine. It's super easy to use to buy Bitcoins. The Bitcoin machine just needs a Bitcoin address and some Indonesian rupiah to be converted. The Bitcoins arrive almost immediately. With Bitcoin, Ubud entrepreneurs can send money to anyone for anything around the world almost instantly for virtually no cost, or spend it at dozens of places here locally today partnership here at Hubud.
All right. So it's just that easy to get your hands on some Bitcoin using the Bitcoin machine here at Hubud, and you can then go and buy your Hubud membership with Bitcoin. Oh, there's no better feeling than that, to actually use Bitcoin to get something real. Give it a try. You won't be sorry. Okay, moving along. Let's talk about price. And for that, we need Rick Shreves. Take it away, Rick.
Thanks, Jerry. Price, hey, it's all good, right? Nothing much else to say. That's it. We can move on. If we look back at where we were a week ago, we were solidly under 300 at that point, and we just bumped up against 380 as an intraday high today. Right now in rupiah, that's 4.884 million rupiah to the Bitcoin. What's interesting, and you may have seen this notice on the Bitcoins in Bali group on Facebook, there's been a big spike in Indonesia interest in Bitcoin in Indonesia, I should say. We don't know what it's doing. They just passed the 2,000 Bitcoins in a single 24-hour period in this last week. They're pretty excited about that. If you look down at the volume numbers on the blue bars down at the bottom, you can see that there's been a big spike in volume activity. And indeed, even though they just passed for the very first time 2,000 BTC in 24 hours, if you look at the most recent 24 hours, they're pushing up against 2.5, 2,500 BTC. So we're seeing some real meaningful volume come out of this, which is great for all the guys over at the exchange, and it's nice to see. But you know how it is, right? As soon as the price starts going up, people start getting interested again. But hey, we'll
fair weather friends.
Fair weather friends, they are indeed. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers in US dollars. Where are we right now as we sit here at this very moment? We are sitting at, I believe the number is 370. That means we're up 2.98% today. The previous 24-hour period, though, we're up 10.5%. That's the biggest gain in the last week. If we look at the activity across the last 8 days, so that's 7 complete 24-hour periods and a partial, we've only had one day where we finished down, and that was the 31st. For Halloween, we finished down 4.16%. Every other day in the last week, we've had some fairly big numbers. What does this all translate into? Well, a couple of big numbers. Number one, the market cap for Bitcoin passed $5 billion this week, and we're sitting at 5.4, almost 5.5 right now. So we're starting to see some big moves in the market cap. This translates into an M1 score that puts Bitcoin back in the top 100. It's ranked number 97 right now.
So M1 is
money supply per currency.
Right. So amongst the 190 something currencies, we're maybe cracking the 100.
We've cracked the 100 a couple of days ago, and we're holding in there at number 97 right now. It's the first time we've been in the double digits in quite some time. In fact, if you look back at the numbers, the last time we were at this point in price was the end of November of 2014. So we're seeing a 2015 year high right now.
What was the highest in one square, the Bitcoin one?
Gary, do you remember when it was up to 1,200? Do you remember what the M1 score was?
I don't remember what the M1 scored, but I think we were down in the 80s, weren't we? When it was that high?
Honestly, I don't know. I'd have to look at historical.
Yeah, because we had like an $8 billion market cap at
That's
one
right.
point. So
That's right.
I think we were down in the 80s.
And considering there are a lot more coins in the market now, like you and I were discussing, Gary, these big price moves have really significant impacts on the market cap, right? It leverages that market cap valuation significantly. And speaking of production of Bitcoins, how much are miners getting paid these days? Well, they're getting paid $9,200. That's the current reward per block. Remember, it wasn't very long ago it was sitting down at $7,000, right? So now we're starting to see some real money here in the mining world. This is going to bring some mining operations back online. It's going to pull a few people off of other altcoins and back into Bitcoin space, and hopefully get us a little more hashing power. But the volumes are so big right now that the average time for mining blocks is still, hovering right around that 10-minute mark. We're not seeing any significant change there. Of course, the difficulty changes to adjust to these things as well. So this is all good. It shows signs of a healthy economy. Big price increases are great for PR, great for everything else, by and large. We're going to talk about potential causes for this in just a little bit, and we're going to play a real fun what-if game later on in terms of how high could it go. But before we get off this sort of hardcore numbers thing, I use a chart that tracks volume by 12-hour periods. So it tracks volume in blocks, up and down in 12-hour periods. And I use that because it matches pretty much Western markets versus Asian markets. And if you look at that chart, in the last 22 days, okay, we've had 44 sessions by my metric, right? We only have 8 sessions of negative volume predominating over up volume. Only 8 sessions out of 44.
And how long is each session?
12 hours. 2 sessions going to the day,
Gotcha.
right?
So for the last 44 12-hour periods, there's only been how many downs?
8.
8.
That is what you call a strong rally. Yeah, that's right.
What's the graph that you showed before?
Sell volume versus buy volume. Excuse me?
Was that the graph you showed before?
No, it's this little guy.
Okay.
Carry around my mobile device, and I count the little bars in that tiny screen. It's not the world's most user-friendly metric, but it does the job. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I know we've got other stuff to talk about. We put the daily number of transactions slide back on the screen because I think it's kind of interesting that despite this huge upswing we've seen in price, we're not seeing a dramatic shift in the daily number of transactions. Yeah, there's an uptrend, but it's not huge. That's 1 month on the screen, right? And we look at the 1 month price graph, and it's like a hockey stick, right? But if we look at the average number of daily transactions, we only show a moderate and steady growth rate. Ignore the one on the far right. This chart always seems to do that for the last 24-hour period. So everything before that's fine.
That's good.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one, please, Gary. Volatility. Well, with this kind of radical swing, one direction or the other, our volatility numbers are, of course, up. So we're at 1.96%, 30-day moving average, 60-day average is pulled up to 1.7. I don't think anybody's really complaining about this, by and large. Go ahead and pull
It's
up.
worse when it's 2% in the negative instead of the positive.
Yeah, right. What's happening with the blockchain debate? And this is an interesting one. Gary and I were actually seeing her right before this session going, well, nothing's moving. Nobody's doing anything, and the clock is ticking. Well, that's essentially correct. I mean, BIP 100 is still sitting right about that 60% mark. And there's no shift here, really, in the last week. There's no real shift in the last month. And so Gary and I were kind of going, what the heck does this mean? What the heck does this mean? And then right on the heels of that, one of our absentee members posted Mike Hearn's most recent blog post.
Let me see if I
Can we
can
pull
find
that
it.
up?
Oh,
Oh, you opened his Facebook page.
hold
instead of the
on.
blog
I
post.
can find it.
Should be at the top.
There it is.
Okay, now Mike Hearn, if you will remember, is one of the two people behind Bitcoin XT.
One.
Bitcoin XT is arguably the fork of Bitcoin, which moves to the larger block size. And you know it's basically died off if you've been following our discussions. Well, the Bitcoin XT guys have been fairly aggressive about things, and this blog post is absolutely no exception to the rule. Hearn basically just comes out here and names names and says, quote unquote, the Bitcoin block size issue is currently deadlocked with nothing happening, nor is anything going to happen. Unlike what the community has been led to believe, the Bitcoin core maintainers are not going to give the community a block size increase regardless of how many people want one. In other words, he's saying, and again, he names names, that two of the Bitcoin core maintainers are opposed. He comes straight out and says one of them due to a conflict of interest. They're opposed to making any change and are simply going to block it. And that he says the entire consensus mechanism is a complete sham, and that basically the Bitcoin core maintainers can hold the entire community hostage. It's an extremely negative piece. And if you are a FUD vendor, fear and uncertainty,
And doubt.
if you are a FUD vendor when it comes to Bitcoin, this article should terrify the holy shit out of you. Seriously. Because it essentially says that Bitcoin is locked up by core maintainers, and whatever the core maintainers want to do is what's going to happen. Unless we have a hard fork, nothing's going to change. Miners aren't going to get a vote. There's no consensus mechanism. And with people involved in the core with the vested interest, the block size is not going to change either.
Well, you know what's interesting is this guy, Mike Hearn, he's a very smart guy. If you watch anything that he does on YouTube, you'll see that right away. He used to work for Google. He'd do capacity planning for Google, and obviously very smart technically. But this is a political problem, right? And actually, he was one of the people that suggested this BIP 101. BIP is a Bitcoin improvement proposal, and the 101 proposal proposed 8 megabyte blocks and then doubling every so often, every so many blocks, etc. But there was also, if I remember correctly, help me out, Rick, there was also a suggested change to the governance model.
Correct.
Right. So
there was a formalization of a governance model.
Right, which also centralized things, giving more power to the people that.
That's a good point. And he actually, in this article, says the irony here is that people are opposed to our proposal on the basis that it will increase centralization. And the reality of the matter is, right now, the way things are, it's all centralized into basically two guys who are a gigantic roadblock in the middle of the road, and unless they move, nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he says they're not going to move. One of them because of conflict of interest.
Well, this is very interesting. I mean, we've gone into the block size debate ad nauseum here in this meeting, and I don't think I'll beat it to death tonight. But you know, Bitcoin is the first of all the altcoins to experience any problem that any altcoin experiences, right? Because it's the first, and it encounters these things first. And Bitcoin is more than technology. Bitcoin is a network, and it has network effects, and it relies on software that's running on tens of thousands of computers. And unless all those tens of thousands of computers implement a change, then no change happens. It's a political problem, and
it's like I said before, and again, not to beat that horse here, but we're right back into the throes of the soap opera that comes with open source projects and open source governance. I used to be the chairman of a large open source project, and by the time it was over with, I just wanted nothing else to do with open source for the rest of my life. Primarily because of the sort of soap opera and drama like this that goes on. You know, I love the idea of open source, just like I used to live in a commune that was a pure Athenian democracy. It's a wonderful idea, but if you actually live in that environment, after a while you're kind of like, well, kill them all. Let's get 2 or 3 people together and make it. And this is why in the open source world we've seen major successes from open source organizations that have a strong central governance. For example, Drupal, Acquia, Red Hat, Ubuntu. right? These are the guys who've all made a difference and who produce something that's reliable and the corporations will use. In contrast, Joomla, these kind of guys are still back in open source, artsy-fartsy, magical wishful thinking land, and you wind up with these pissing matches. And that's exactly where I see Bitcoin going right now, and it's freaking depressing.
Well, Mike says that there's two people who are blocking the progress, that's 9 people.
Oh yeah, he names names and calls people out, puts up their tweets, reports conversations they had at the conference. And Hearn and, I'm sorry, what's the other guy's name? I'm drawing a blank.
Andreas?
No.
Gavin.
Gavin. Yeah, they both are blowing off the Hong Kong conference that's coming up. That's supposed to deal with this deadlock because they say it's hopeless.
Well, I listened to the Scaling Bitcoin conference material that happened in Montreal, and it was I was impressed with the material that was there.
Nothing happened. It was a wonderful discussion, but nothing happened. And that's the point Hearn makes here as well. He's like, we had all these chats and we all got together, but online, at the end of the day, nothing happened.
But the common people don't really care.
Well, again, if we wind up in a situation where let me play devil's advocate with you. I would say maybe it doesn't matter what the common people think. There is a chilling effect. For example, when we had the Greece crisis happening, we should have seen a price rise in Bitcoin being driven by the market reaction to Greece and capital crisis. There was some pressure there, but it was offset by the conflagration that was going on around the block size today. Everybody was freaked out that Bitcoin was going to fork, right? So I think that, you're right, the common guy doesn't know. But at this point in time, the cognoscenti do know, and this has the potential to create a problem.
Right. Well, and the common guy will know when his wallet doesn't work or his transactions don't happen. I mean, that problem that we were just having with Toko Bitcoin could be a problem that my wallet updated a blockchain that their wallet doesn't have access to, and we need a few minutes for them to synchronize. And that happens as a function of the block size. So who knows?
This article's on the Bitcoins and Bali group on Facebook. I encourage you to read it. I mean, he's doing a bit of sour grapes. He is upset, obviously, when he wrote this. But it's an extremely negative view of the situation, and you should read it. You should.
Well, that's on both flanks. So
that's it. It's a pissing match.
Well, this is the last thing I'll say about it is, this is a little bit different than other open source projects because you've got the network effects. The network is a part of what they've built. When you've got just an operating system, you can fork an operating system. It's not dependent on everybody using it for the actual thing to work. So it's a little bit different in that regard.
But if we look at things like content management systems like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, you have the entire plug-in and theme developer ecosystem that is involved with it. So that's
similar. That's similar.
Yeah.
And a lot of times Bitcoin is compared to TCP/IP. We're all still using TCP/IP version 4, even though we're now on TCP/IP version 6. But because TCP/IP version 4 is so ubiquitous, it's still what we use, and they just make it work. There's lots of Scotch tape and Band-Aids on TCP/IP version 4, but the internet's still chugging along. So anyway, we shall see.
So
Bitcoin will survive, maybe. We'll see.
Well, it's certainly leaving plenty of room for somebody else to come along with a better model.
And I'm still waiting for my contract.
Bottom line, that's what the problem is.
I'm not sure if people have different opinions. That's my opinion, and some people share an opinion. But is that increasing the block size isn't actually an urgent issue right now. I think some people try to present it like that. Maybe they are right, but I don't agree with it. And I think many people think that it is not an urgent issue.
That's certainly one side of the debate, for sure. But with these proposals, there's more going on than just the change in block size. Though that's the heart of it.
Yeah.
There's also changes in the consensus mechanism that the governance model, if you will, right?
Right. Yeah. This is.
Yeah. Personally, I am happy.
probably more the core of the issue. I mean, you probably want to fix the consensus first before you tackle the different blockchain.
If it winds up being a roadblock to solving that problem,
I don't think it is a roadblock. I think for instance, the way things are working right now, I think they're working well. And the Bitcoin client is constantly improving. And the reason the code developers have that influence is because people choose to run the nodes that they release. So people give them power, that's why they have the power.
Well, go ahead.
Is this block size, a certain uncertainty around the block size to blame for the delays in processing small transactions, like purchasing pulse, buying a coffee, buying
Yes.
dinner at a restaurant?
Yes.
No.
Quite possibly. It could be.
Theoretically, but no, I don't
Quite
think it is.
possibly. Well, go ahead.
We might be over the limit right now, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's not effective. It's not effective. We're below the limit right now.
Well, but this is why they've done the stress testing, though. They did stress testing in order to demonstrate to the community what would happen when there was an excessive load on the Bitcoin network, and it does affect transaction clearing time. And you've got orphan transactions that don't make it into a block for up to 24 hours during that stress test. So it's a problem. I've experienced
It's
it.
theoretically a problem. Is that what's causing this problem right now? Probably not. And I say that based on the network chart that we just looked at that shows what average block times are right now. We're not seeing a big spike in block completion times that would indicate a bottleneck.
Right, but sites like Toko Bitcoin don't wait for the first confirmation. They just wait to see it hit the blockchain. But if my wallet hits one blockchain and Toko Bitcoin is looking at another blockchain, and those two chains have a different version of reality, then it doesn't acknowledge the payment. It does later. It eventually clears up. Like, it eventually happens. And I've never seen a Bitcoin transaction not eventually go through. But I've seen one that's pending for 48 hours. It's like, this is crazy. And if I didn't know the person that I was paying, then it would be a problem. I'd have to pay twice, and then it would clear, and then I have to go back and try to get my money back. And that's just not a usability experience that people will suffer to adopt Bitcoin. So anyway, let's move along, guys. Why is the Bitcoin price going up?
I go China.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that it is a confluence of news items in China. This is kind of an old story, but it points to the type of thing that's going on in China. If you've been watching the news in China, you've seen that their stock market has been going crazy. They hit a big bubble, and then they had a big correction, and the People's Bank of China is doing their best to manage the exchange rate of the yuan versus all of China's trading partners, basically, and that requires huge reserves and dramatic measures. So what have they done? They've done capital controls. So they've cracked down on Macau and Hong Kong as places where people can pull a little bit of funny business to get more than $50,000 out of China. They've done that. They've lowered the interest rate, or raised the interest rate, lowered the interest rate. Anyway, the central bank is messing with the interest rate to try and manage this whole process. They've devalued their currency within the last month. All of these things are, these are all the policy mechanisms that a central bank has at their disposal to try and keep a handle on the value of the yuan versus the rest of the world's currencies. And, well, what happens when the People's Bank of China does something you don't like implement capital controls? You look for something else to do. And some feel that Bitcoin is the mechanism by which people in China can get their money out. And well, the thing about Bitcoin is you don't need to ask for permission. You can just do it. As long as you've got a working exchange in China that will trade your yuan for Bitcoin, once it's in Bitcoin, it's yours. I mean, you can put it on a thumb drive and mail it to your cousin in San Francisco, or you can email it. I mean, it's totally mobile once you get it into Bitcoin. There's nothing the People's Bank of China can do to stop money movement after it's into a cryptocurrency. It is?
Yeah, but then there's always, I can go to China and sell my Bitcoins to Chinese people for whatever Chinese.
Yeah, you can walk up to somebody, you can use the mycelium wallet, you can get on, you know, what is it, WeChat. There's all kinds of ways you can connect with somebody, and
Until
the Bitcoin price is going up based on massive volume in China. The Chinese are in a big way. If you look at the volume on the Chinese exchanges, it is just astronomical. They're, it's just a billion people. It's a billion people doing something. And by the way, this is a tiny, tiny fraction of the possible money that could flow in. There's something like $22 trillion in savings in the Chinese market.
does anybody know the exchanges they have? They got KYC requirements similar to.
They do. They do. Let me show you. This is a tweet by the CEO or one of the executives at the Chinese exchange OKCoin BTC, and they are signing up customers at a furious pace. It takes them about 24 to 48 hours to do KYC, and they're working around the clock. So that's pretty telling in terms of Chinese adoption of Bitcoin itself. And you can just see, if you plug into the APIs on the Chinese exchanges, you can see the volume. It's enormous. It dwarfs everything that's happening elsewhere in the world.
Half a million at least, right?
500 million, over what period of time?
1 day.
1 day, 500 million US dollars worth?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing. Okay, so anyway, Bitcoin price hits 2015 highs led by Chinese exchanges. This is a story to that effect on Bitcoin Magazine. And as is typical with a speculative investment such as Bitcoin, when the price starts rising, others that have watched on the sidelines begin to experience a phenomenon known as fear of missing out, FOMO. FOMO. Drop that at your next cocktail party using a sentence. As the price continues to rise, more people get on board. This is what's called herd mentality, and 1 billion people is a big herd. It's a big herd. 22 billion, 22 trillion. That's a lot of dough.
Hey, did you read that article over there on the right? New data from OTC trading desk reveals millions of dollars in Bitcoin traded off public markets.
I have not read that, but it doesn't surprise me.
But if somebody's actually got a handle on what that dollar figure is, that would be fascinating.
That would be, except that it's over the counter, so I mean, it's
Maybe they did studies.
Over
Sure.
the counter is how I guess you would sell or buy if you have a massive amount of money. Because
Right.
Otherwise,
you have a massive amount of
buying-
money or a massive amount of Bitcoin. This is what
Exactly.
the federales in the States, the FBI, when they got rid of the Silk Road Bitcoins, they didn't go sell it on the market. They had an auction.
Yeah.
They wanted to get the most they could for those Bitcoins.
We all know the problem is, though, is trying to actually make a purchase of a large amount of Bitcoins is extremely difficult because
Yeah.
no one's selling large amounts of Bitcoin. You have to aggregate a large number of smaller transactions.
Right. Well, actually, sometimes there are people making
That's a
big dumps.
general rule.
There was a guy at the
Netting
inside.
that buyer seller is a tough one.
Yeah. Well, you know, there was a guy at the Inside Bitcoins conference in Singapore where his whole business was high net worth individuals trying to buy large amounts of Bitcoin, and I think he even just
Yeah, I talked to him. His whole business was aggregating all the smaller transactions
okay,
to take to them to do that.
Fascinating.
That was his entire business model.
fascinating. All right, moving along here. So
How high can it go?
yes,
Actually, along with China, what's the people's thoughts? Because you obviously have a large number of mining tools concentrated in China already, with increase of buying or capitalization in China. What's the thought on the table of the effects of that?
Sorry, I just got a message from my saying,
I-
I'll see you at the filter. Dude, the filter started 45 minutes ago.
well, I can comment on that. I mean, essentially, there's a big pile of money in China that is looking for a safe place to be. Chinese stock market has been off way off its highs earlier in the year. And the question is, how high can it go? The question is, I think the answer is quite a bit higher, but you never know. But let's talk theory a little
Pie in
bit.
the sky, right?
Yeah.
Gary and I actually had this discussion almost a week ago, about 6 days ago. Someone had posted somewhere, and we both had seen it, this wildly speculative piece saying Bitcoin came to achieve certain landmarks. What would that mean Bitcoin, a single Bitcoin, is worth? And we both had real questions about the methodology that was used because it wasn't very transparent. And so did a bit of research, did a bit of digging around, and came up with a couple of charts that actually do seem to have pretty solid methodology that are real freaking eye-openers. Okay, so before you leave, Gary, we know that historically in the past, we've hit 1280, all right? So we know it can go that high. And of course, there were significantly fewer Bitcoins in the market then, right? So, you know, more people chasing fewer coins, et cetera, et cetera. But does that mean 1280 is the top? Now we've got a lot more Bitcoins. It's a harder number to reach. Well, somebody's done some math on it. It's interesting. Let's flip over. First chart says, what if Bitcoin starts to take over and replace part of the global financial gold market? And so they looked at, they did the study at the early part of August when Bitcoin was $280 a coin. And they said, well, based on the current value of the global gold market, if Bitcoin took over 1% of that, what would that mean for the value of a single Bitcoin? And of course, when you do this calculation, you don't simply look at the size of the gold market and then divide it by the number of Bitcoins in circulation. You also have to take into account velocity, right? That is how quickly those Bitcoins would change hands. And the other methodologies that we'd seen weren't good in terms of their methodology metric. This guy, or these guys, which is ARK Investment. ARK Investment benchmarked it against the velocity numbers for the US dollar, which is fine. It's someplace to start. So these guys have actually weighted this against real world velocity numbers. So if Bitcoin were to replace 1% of the global financial gold market, it would imply that the value of a single Bitcoin would be $1,700. 1%, guys, that's it. Takes over 0.5%. $850.
And oh, what happened?
Go back, it was just getting interesting. Oh no, I don't want the other. This is when fuck your bank pops on.
What?
Spaces, man, spaces.
I think,
Hold
do
on.
like 3 fingers, right?
Someone in the global financial gold market just sapped his presentation. Oh!
Well, I think it's a note that you know, they refer to Bitcoin teleporter. I think when they designed Bitcoin, minus all the carry costs and the ability to be even more portable than gold already is, think about it. So replacing gold market, if people are interested in why gold is money or in gold as an asset class, if you buy into the idea that Bitcoin is an approximation of gold, then maybe taking over 1% of the market is not outlandish.
Particularly, sorry to jump in, particularly when you consider that the Chinese have a well-known propensity for using gold as a shelter for capital, right? Right now we're in a down gold market. Bitcoin's rising like crazy. There's a fashion for Bitcoin in the Chinese investment market right now. So those two things sort of come together to say that there is a likelihood, thank you, that Bitcoin could supplant part of that Chinese money that would normally go into the gold market. Is it 1%? I don't know. That's a big leap, admittedly. But let's play the real what-if game here. What if it took over 10% of the global financial gold market? Well, that would put the value of the Bitcoin at $17,000 a Bitcoin. And of course, 100% in fantasy. Now, let's look at the next chart because, all right, if it doesn't replace the gold market, I think all of us can agree that Bitcoin stands an excellent chance of making inroads in the remittances market. So they did the same analysis here. So there's the August number on the left, that's our benchmark. Now, what if Bitcoin took over 1% of the global remittances market? That would imply a value of $200 per Bitcoin. Okay, we're already above that today. What if we hit 10% of the global remittances market, $2,000 a Bitcoin? I think it's extremely conceivable that Bitcoin could take 5 to 10% of the global remittances market in the medium term. I also think it's conceivable that Bitcoin could do at least 0.5% of the global gold market based on Chinese market demand. We crash those two numbers together, we're talking about an approximate value of $1,800 a Bitcoin.
And what if everybody buys their Pulsar with Bitcoin?
Well, it'll go up in inventory.
No Pulsar? No Pulsar?
8 minutes ago, I received Pulsar.
You did, all right, woo! Demo day.
So this
Always
whole,
wins
this
me.
whole what if, what could be the highest top-end value of Bitcoin discussion is largely academic, but it was good to see somebody do some math that actually made some sense. And in realistic numbers too, right? Well, what if it's 1%, what if it's 10%, as opposed to, oh, it's going to take over 75% of the global remittances market, and then it's going to be worth $10,000. It's not that kind of sensationalist stuff. It actually does have a methodology that's spelled out and does make sense.
Well, in reality, too, it will take some of the gold market, it'll take some of the remittance market, it'll take some of the online purchasing market, and it's not hard to imagine a wildly higher price for Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin fanatic, so of course I, take that with a grain of salt, but there's a lot of reasons to be very bullish on Bitcoin. All the Bitcoins on planet Earth are only worth $5 billion. Compare that to just the 22 trillion that the Chinese are looking for a shelter for. And the number of Bitcoins is mathematically limited. There's a limited supply. So you just plot that on a supply and demand curve, and you can see that Bitcoins could be worth wildly more than they are today. And you can see with just that's why the price can move in such a major way over a short period of time, like we've seen recently.
There's a lot of money chasing very few points,
right?
Relatively speaking.
Right, and you see the movement of in a matter of a few weeks, $1 billion or more.
So obviously, don't be taking investment advice from me. If you saw my bank account balance, you know better than to do that. But these are very interesting numbers. These are some what ifs that I think are conceivable.
Okay, cool. All right, with that, we're going to move on to our discussion topic of the night. The minimum wage. I had an interesting conversation with someone recently just about the minimum wage in general. And basically, it's my opinion that there should be no minimum wage. And the person that I was talking with said to me, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody having that opinion, ever. That's just crazy. And it might be crazy, and I think that I'm probably in the minority with my opinion that there shouldn't be a minimum wage. But, well, in my opinion, it's just another form of price fixing, central control. It's great in theory, but in practice, it has all kinds of unintended consequences. If you pick a value out of a hat, like in the States, they're talking about a $15 minimum wage. How does that one figure suit every myriad of relationships between an employer and employee that suit both those people? It seems like it's something out of a hat. And as communists taught us, when you get that number wrong, there are shortages. For example, if you say, a loaf of bread shouldn't be $5, it should be $1, then and you set the price at $1, all of a sudden you have no bread, right? And so when you mess with market forces, I'm a bit of an ideologue on this point, but and I think that's why people disagree with me on the minimum wage. But yeah, I think when you fix prices, you have unintended consequences. So fast forward now to the story for tonight. Here's somebody that chose their own minimum wage. There was what he decided. He's a Silicon Valley startup guy, and he essentially realized that San Francisco is a very expensive place to live, and that if he made a few concessions and moved some things around, that he could offer all of his employees a minimum salary of $70,000 a year, right? everybody makes at least that amount of money, and they can, you know, live and work and breathe, and maybe even afford to buy a house or whatever you need to be happy in San Francisco. I think he had employees that were making, you know, $30,000, $35,000, and well, he made this policy decision to go to $70,000 a year. No laws made him do this, which I think is interesting given the, you know, the discussion that I just kind of framed with, you know, making a law for minimum wage. You can find business owners that, and I think nothing will change until lots and lots of people have this kind of mental shift where it's not all about the money, it's about the thing you're creating and the happiness of the people that are there at your workplace. The values, it's more than just the bottom line. It's what you're creating, the social consciousness of what you're creating, and also the happiness of the people that work in your environment. So, I mean, how many people own your own business in the room? Anybody? Right, and anybody have employees? And are you paying your employees minimum wage? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. And would you ever consider paying them more than the minimum wage voluntarily for the sake of something bigger? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, I mean, I don't think it's a huge, I don't think this is an idea that's sweeping the nation or, you know, going to be on the cover of Inc. magazine anytime soon. But I think that there is a desire that transcends the bottom line that will show up in the wages that we pay people for the sake of what they're creating and for the sake of the nature of the organization. But what do you guys think? Do you think that's possible, or do you think it'll always come down to money because of human greed or cheapness? Or
I think they're two separate conversations. Like, minimum wage is there to protect people who cannot necessarily speak up for themselves in negotiations. It protects the vulnerable, etc. This is a different conversation. This is I mean, you can't really call it a minimum wage. It's a new baseline. It's like a values, ideological baseline.
Well, but it's someone choosing something more than the minimum wage, not because they were forced to, but because they made a choice, right? And I don't know. It's you know, a single example in 1,000 other companies where they're not doing this. But it's interesting that someone's choosing to do it. And
So tell us what happened.
well, what's interesting about this, and I encourage you to read the story, but there were a few unintended consequences. Imagine if you're, you know, a highly skilled or someone with a lot of experience, and you're making $71,000 a year, and they implement this policy, and then, you know, the bag boy is making $70,000 a year, and you're making $71,000 a year. How do you feel about that arrangement? Are you then resentful of your employer, or is that just perfectly okay with you?
What's the name of the company?
Something payments.
You can look it up. I don't remember exactly, but
But I mean, what do they do?
Payments company.
they do payments, but it could be any company. What do you think that people would react negatively to that dynamic? Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the unintended consequences. He had people that quit because they're like, hey, I'm, you know, who's this Yahoo making 70? I only make 71. You know, screw you guys.
I'm going to take 50,000 down.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'll show you. Bite off the nose to spite the face.
Classes are mixing. Classes are mixing.
Did he cut the guy that was making 150,000?
No, he didn't cut anybody. He cut his own salary, which the guy is a really cool guy. He's actually, well, if you read the story, it reads a little bit like a soap opera. There's soap opera dynamics to it. He's got a brother that he was in business with that is suing him over this decision. or at least something related. So there's that. But there's one more consequence that that happened. First of all, this was a PR boon for him. I mean, he was all over the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, wanted to do a study. He was doing interview after interview after interview. He had this flood of people that wanted to be his customers, and he had a flood of people that wanted to work at the company. So you can only imagine it ended up being a huge distraction. And he lost customers who figured that he was overcharging them because he could now pay these people so exorbitantly. So, but in the end, and I think he makes the point in this story, the people that left of their own volition, marginal, not a big problem. The customers that left, good riddance, essentially. And he's kind of cooking with gas now with this company by breaking the rules. I think it's pretty inspiring.
So this minimum wage kicked in about 6 months ago. Is that when there was a big splash?
Yeah, it's been something like that. And now it's 6 months on. And the initial stories that I read kind of highlighted those problems that I mentioned, but this is kind of a little bit later. That's why it's called the What Really Happened.
So but I think it's still hard to tell if this was possibility to the company.
Yeah, well, maybe it's too early to tell. That's possible.
Actually, it looks like he's in the cover. I think that's him.
Which one?
You see,
That's
you can
him.
go up. See, that's actually the cover of the magazine. It's him as well.
Where, this one?
The right, look at the right, the top.
Oh,
right
this
now.
one, Ink Magazine.
It looks like he's actually on the cover. That story is on the cover of the print.
Yes.
I think it's hard to
He's a
tell.
good-looking guy. I mean,
I think it's hard to tell, yeah, if in the long term positive or negative.
I think it's too early to tell too. Yeah.
Okay, obviously it's not all butterflies.
Yes, it's not all unicorns and rainbows
But
yet, but
well, that's losing few customers and getting few people. Well, few people leaving the company. Does that the long term negative effect?
yeah. Well, we shall see. I think it's especially with all the business owners in the room, I think it's a fantastic thought experiment to see, like, wow, could I do this at my company? What if I tried this? Would it be good, bad, negative? Maybe we do need to watch a little bit longer, Giorgio. But I think this is the kind of thing, this is like the new wave of business thinking that I think will eventually win the day. I mean, I'm kind of an optimist, and I don't know what will really happen, but I like to think that this kind of thing will happen absent regulation, absent forcing people to pay people a decent wage. I'd love to see this kind of thing just happen because, not even due to market forces, just because people have a different consciousness. They're not after just money. They're after happy people working at their company and happy people making good products for the customers. And some intangible things, but real things nonetheless.
So I think it would happen if you had an increase in startups, smaller startups that have that sort of mentality, and getting this increase in startups in the economy in general. So the flip side of that is Wall Street's getting involved in every little thing right now. They're starting to look at, if they're not investing yet, they're starting to look at investing in these startup companies.
Right.
Which will prevent that paradigm from happening because they will hold the purse strings.
That's true.
So I've been involved in some accelerators in New York City, and that's where Wall Street.
It's all about money.
And I'm starting to see more Morgans, those sorts of companies coming to these really small events with angel investors and trying to see what's going on and how they can get involved. Because I think they're scared.
That is a
we're
great
heading in
point.
that direction.
That's a great point. And obviously, if Wall Street gets involved, they might not be thinking along the same lines that I'm thinking about. But we do have counters to those trends in the form of crowdfunding and peer-to-peer finance. Yeah, look around here at Hubud, at the people starting businesses and how they're getting their funding. It's the world is changing, and there's a bit of old world versus new world going on. So it's a fun time to be a spectator, and it's a fun time to make your way.
Don't underestimate the old world.
True.
Buffer came out with their open salary thing
Oh.
where literally
Everybody knew what everybody else was making?
exactly, and
Yeah.
it's like they also have a system. A year with buffer, you get I don't know $10,000 more. Founding member gets $10,000 more. And it's like if I go up and work for buffer now, I know exactly how much I'll get paid, and it's very clearly explained why.
Right, so you have no negotiating power. It's
No.
just, you just slide in there.
No, it's like straight up. I know what's going on.
I like that. Has that been good for them?
More companies, I think, have joined that sort of movement, and they also have open stats coming straight out of Stripe of how much they're making,
Ah,
how are
wow.
they growing. I mean, it's just pretty crazy.
Radical transparency.
It's pretty radical transparency, and they're literally like leading a movement. And I actually just wrote an article about them on the 27th last month, but the founder tweeted, we just closed our round or whatever. We hired our employee number 50, and we closed our office in San Francisco. We're officially fully remote company. So they're also riding the wave for basically the digital nomad.
Virtual
as a
employee.
company, not
Yeah.
as individuals, and they're also they're literally like they're right. They're saying we used to pay this much for an office space in San Francisco. On top of that, most of our employees were paying at least $2,000 a month for rent. Now we're not paying for office space anymore. Most of our employees live in places where rent is less than $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
So-
look at the proliferation of co-working spaces in New York. They're just popping up like crazy.
Yep.
And in New York, you can get a single office by itself for $750 a month. It's just unheard of.
Yep. It's an undeniable trend.
So there's a lot of trends there that now we just talk about them as trends, but I think they will become.
Having said that, I think Reddit had over workers working remotely, and they recently changed the life and decided to bring everybody together.
I guess it doesn't work.
I guess it's
only young one.
yeah. So I think it's still hard, especially for big companies. I think for big companies, it's still hard. I think for smaller companies, I think it works well. Probably hard for bigger companies.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to leave it at that. We are out of time, but I'm sure you guys all noticed that, not with us tonight is Johnny Frisch. He was a regular member for most of the 67 filters that we've had thus far, and so I'm gonna let Johnny take us out here with a little song of his called "The Unicorns and Rainbow." And thanks for coming tonight, guys. We'll see you next week, same time, rain or shine, Tuesday night. And with that, I'll let Johnny take us out. We miss you, Johnny, and good luck in Melbourne, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Have you guys seen this?
That's what I wanna see when I close my eyes. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna read between the sparkling lines. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna see when I close my eyes. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna read between the sparkling lines.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum, in a study getting funny with Professor Plum. Pause, sharing honey with Dorothy in the Forest of Oz. Now that's what I call a worthwhile cause. Charlie's playing checkers with orange-faced midgets. Can't keep track of scores because of transforming digits. And chocolate's always on the menu in every single venue. This I try to tell you, but there's barely room for words, let alone elbows. On the road of bricks of yellow, keep your hands inside the boat, sailing through the sea of jello. Leave horizons filled with clouds, so you might chance upon some meatballs. Just dive into the world, don't be afraid to free fall. It's free for all, it's free of cost, so go be lost. Just run inside the beach and don't recall. Just keep following the path of the seagull fly.
That's what I wanna see when I close my eyes. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna read between the sparkling lines. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna see when I close my eyes. Unicorns and rainbows. That's what I wanna read between the sparkling lines.
I see a double rainbow, so of course I fly towards it on my one-horn Pegasus, color my Unicornosaurus. The rhythm never stops, and it's got me like a chorus melody so heavenly I get the demo like a torrent. I let it all in, so my soul is super porous while I'm cruising super groovy through the Ubud monkey forest on my supercalifragilistic flowing funky horses. And the turtles, of course, all the turtles are free, as turtles and maybe all creatures should be, is what the turtle god says while he's leaping down at me. It's not the devil, but Jesus who be in the details. Speaketh the chef who refused to execute killer bee whales and prefers to view the beauty in the little sea snails instead of trying to stick his nudie branch into every single female. But you know I understand the urges because I be male. Packages look strong on the surface, but inside we be frail. So don't leave her standing by the seashore selling seashells. Stay within the waves until she tells you be well, because then and only then can the freedom tears well. For she's blessed with the gift of accepting real help, and she knows in every moment that her life is only golden. Please don't take it too serious, your radio ain't broken. A little nonsense now and then is cherished by the wisest men who gobble funk around with words when they're in the lion's den. That's what Buddha's telling Buddhas when you trying to slide inside a Saudi balance end. Preach.
That's what I wanna say when I close my eyes. Unicorns are rainbow, that's what I wanna read between the broken lines. Unicorns are rainbow, unicorns are rainbow. Unicorns are rainbow, that's what I wanna read between the broken lines. Fly, unicorn, fly.
When I stepped into the world, it was full of love and light, and laughter happened after all the chuckles hugged me tight. But then the giggling constricted like a python in the night, fighting with the rightness that I now felt wrong to life. Might this be the true existence, and before was just respite, the brightness just a might, in an overwhelming darkness that will long and my sight. The sight was just a lie, just a sly little disguise, nothing but a blinded eye. Try so hard to be your highness, but just ended up quite high. And the unicorn will soon expire, now the Voldemort is nigh. The rainbows with the into slivers as the shadows slither in. Sticking with sneaky minions delivering evil missions. A parcel from the darkest tongue, the wizard slither in. At first it seems a curse, but then I take a peek, and the answers that I seek in the blackness they do sleep. Purporting that they torture me when truly they lose peace. Embrace the parts that you don't want to see, and you will set you free.
Set you free.